Yeah, that was fine with me. And now, drum roll, it's my pleasure to introduce our main speaker, Justin Reynolds. Oh, Justin from Redlands. Sorry. Hi, Justin.
My goodness. Hi, my name's Justin. I'm an alcoholic. I would like to thank Randy for asking me out here, and John, thank you for having me tonight. Laura, thank you for driving up here with me. And it's quite it's quite humbling to share the stage with people celebrating 27 and 40 years right before me. That's incredible. And happy birthday to the birthday takers, and welcome to the newcomers. I have a sobriety date of December 7th of 2016. I have a sponsor. His name is Pat O, and I have a home group. And to our chip takers tonight, incredible. I took my 30 days at 29 days because I got tired of standing up as a newcomer. It took me 4 years into my sobriety to get honest about it. Like literally I get on December 6th, Facebook reminds me like 6 years ago you were, and I was like, oh, it's actually December 7th. And I had to call my sponsorship family and be like, guys, I got to come honest with you. You know, my sobriety date is December 7th of 2016, not December 6th. And they were like, yeah, we don't care. It doesn't matter. But thanks for telling us. I just decided in all my great wisdom at 29 days sober, that I could just change my sobriety date and just start telling people I got sober on the 6th instead of 7th. And so, I was born and raised in Orange County in Irvine, and we went to the mega church on the hill in Irvine, and mom and dad. Mom was in charge of missions at the church, and dad was in charge of catering. And it was okay. We had, like, dad drove the gold Mercedes and had the green American Express card, and we looked great on the outside. Like, we looked like this picturesque, like the poster family for American Christianity or something. And it was like, that's how it was. And the church was okay. It was very, for me, it was this like a round peg in a square hole. It didn't quite work, but it was enough to like get me through, because I didn't start drinking until I was 16 and a half, and I'm restless, irritable, and discontent long before that. And I need something, and church was the solution, and they were my community. And I was like the super awkward kid in the church van going down to Mexicali, and I have to pee a lot, as you know. The poor people in the back are like, is our speaker leaving during the birthdays? And I just had to pee. I just drove from, anyways. But I'm weird and I'm awkward and I have to pee driving down to Mexicali. Nobody else has to pee yet, and I have to pee. And I picked some poor female who's my victim in my head. She has no idea, but we're already married and have a white picket fence, and I've picked her. She's my distraction for the trip, and anything to get me out of my head, right? Anything to get me out of that moment. And it was okay. And like I said, it worked for a little while. We were very, very involved in church, and everyone thought we had this wonderful life. And when I was 16 years old, my dad came out of the closet as being gay, and the church said we were no longer welcome there. And at first, when I first started telling my story, it was like I puffed my chest up at God, and really it was a broken-hearted thing. Like the community that I thought that I had around me was no longer my community, and I felt like I didn't have a home. And not only that, but they're telling me things about my dad, that the afterlife, and whether he's going to be there, and whether I'm all these things. A 16-year-old, I'm like, this man's my hero. I don't know. Like I don't understand any of it. And I would carry that resentment towards God and towards church well into, I wouldn't say well, but into my sobriety, right? It was really the We Agnostics chapter that really broke down that resentment for me that I held for a long time, for many, many years, until I got into sobriety. But so we no longer attended church. That summer we were in Alanis Morissette was playing at Irvine Meadows, and I was in the back of a baby blue Jeep, and we're in the line to get off at Irvine Center Drive off the 405 freeway, and I'm in the very back, and one of my girlfriends takes a hit of weed, and she grabs my cheeks and she shotguns it to me, and I had been kissed and stoned for the first time in my life, and I was like, this is amazing, I've arrived, like, this is incredible. And then we got barbecue potato chips passed around, and like, I was like, okay, this is it, I'm done, like, I'm in. And then went to listen to Alanis Morissette. We passed out on the lawn of Irvine Meadows, and I was like, I don't know why I've waited this long to do this, like, this is what I've been waiting for my whole life. I had a lot of fun with that. Mom went to work nights because she thought that that would cure the depression that she had from Dad leaving. Dad's now left and gone on to do his thing, and so he's gone out of the house. Mom's working nights, and I figured out real quick that no matter how weird and awkward you are in high school, if you throw parties, people like you. And so I threw parties, and I threw a lot of parties, and super grateful for the amends process, because later now in sobriety I was able to sit down with my sisters, and my sisters, they were never in any danger or harm, but they felt trapped in their own room in their house, right? And I've taken over the whole house. My sister, in the amends process, I said, is there anything else you'd like to tell me? And my sister says, yeah, I now live in Inglewood, California, downtown LA, and I hate the smell of weed because of you. And I was like, okay, well, because she's like, I knew that as soon as that smell came upstairs, like it was on downstairs, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't want to come out of the house and look. And I knew the party was happening, and I knew that we weren't going to be able to leave our room for the rest of the night. And so my sisters would just lock themselves in their bedroom and stay in there for the night. And I didn't care because I was like comfortable in my skin for the first time. I had no consideration of their feelings or how they were reacting to it. I was popular, and people liked me, and I was having fun. And so that was that. I had a lot of fun, and we partied in high school, and we did our thing. I drove around with a case of Jaeger in my trunk, and that was like, it was medicinal, so it was okay, right? Like I needed it to calm the stomach, and I drank and I partied for a long time. I immediately out of high school, I tried going to college, but my dealer was across the street, and so I always ended up there instead of in class. I don't know what happened there. So I never ended up going to college, and I got a job with what back then was Pac-Bell Mobile Services, and I was working, and the sales industry is very big on, I mean, it's just normal. I mean, it was like we would have bottles of Dayquil and Pedialyte just lined up behind the sales counter because you knew, like when you came in the morning, all of us had been drinking all night, and we'd come in and really to do and sleep, like lay our head on our pillow at night and sleep with the actions that we were taking to make the money that we needed to make the bosses happy. It was like that was kind of what was required of us. I mean, the immorality of what happened with convincing people, anyways, sales is sales, right? And so it was just on. It was just fun. I mean, now I've gone from partying in high school to drinking continually throughout the day on lunch and breaks, and even sometimes in the back rooms. And it was like drinking at work, smoking weed on my break was kind of my jam. And at some point, I became a store manager with them, and I was just managing a store off of Beach Boulevard in Seal Beach, and I knew every morning there was a bar. It happened to be a bikini bar, but that's irrelevant. They weren't even in bikinis because it was 6 a.m. yet. They were just coming in, rolling in from the night before. But the real thing is that they were only closed for 4 hours, right? They closed from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I knew if I had a shift at 8 a.m. that I could show up there at 7, have a few shots of Jaeger, and I could show up to work. And then I had a guy who happened to find a way to connect with Oxy, and so he'd just leave these bottles on my desk, and I'd go to work, and I'd pick up the Jaeger, go to the bar, take a few shots of Jaeger, and I'd have the bottle waiting for me there, and I was not able to maintain very well. I was like nodding out at the cash register and things like that, and my employees are like, you okay? And I'm like, I'm fine, it's fine. It's 7 a.m. There's nothing, I couldn't have been drinking yet. And so I went, and I had a chiropractor at the time, and I go to my chiropractor, and he was an old timer in AA, and I said, hey, I think I have a drinking problem. He pulls out his wallet and he was like, if you continue to drink, you'll lose everything in here. And I was like, I'm like, I don't understand any. I just don't want to have to take shots of Jaeger before work. Like, I don't understand any of that at this point. I know that every morning I have to throw up enough to take a bite of a bagel to get a shot of Jaeger to go through my day. That's all I know. And I'm just trying not to do that. And so I go down to Newport Beach, and he took me to some meetings down there in Corona del Mar, and I walk in and everyone's in suit and tie, and I was like, why are they all in suit and ties? Like, it takes knowing the program to understand that we respect what the program has done for us, and we, which is why I just showed up at 5 minutes before, because I'm changing into a suit in the bathroom of where was Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf? The lady at Coffee Bean was like, I'm walking in with my suit. I'm like, I need coffee too, but I'll be right back. I have to change into a suit real quick. But I was like, it didn't help that I was getting really stoned in the parking lot before the meetings too. So it was like this weird thing where I was like, why are you all dressed in suits? And you were like, why you smell like weed? And I was like, we just don't get along. There's just a disconnect here. And I showed up and I stayed up for like a year and a half, and I took chips and all these things. And I really, never invested the time to really understand what the program was about. I didn't really care. This man who was my chiropractor is now my sponsor by name, right? Because you've got to have a sponsor. I figured that out real quick. So he's my sponsor. In fact, I think he probably just told me he was my sponsor, and I was like, okay, if that's what I need to do. I tell the story about the smoking weed because because in my time here in the few years that I've been sober, I've had plenty of people who come along and say, I'm going to just smoke weed in Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's like that. I understand you're going to have your journey, but let me tell you mine, because I don't know when, without a sufficient substitute against the first drink, I don't know when I'm going to pick up again. For me, it was 4 years later. It could have been 4 days. It could have been 4 weeks. It could have been 4 years. But if I'm going to continue to put a substance in my body that affects me from the neck up, then I don't know when that next drink is coming. And for me, it was 4 years. I maintained not drinking for 4 years, but I walked into a liquor store. I think it was just a grocery store in Vegas, and we were out there, and there's like an apricot ale, and I'm like, oh, I didn't have apricot ale yet. That's probably a good thing to have. And so I picked up a bottle of apricot ale, probably a 6-pack, and went back and started drinking that. And that would start what was some of the darkest drinking years of my life. It was really, really dark then. There's certain people in my family who know that I've started drinking again. There are certain people, my mom and dad and sisters, who think that I've been sober since the 4 years prior. So I'm doing what we do. I'm hiding alcohol in wheel wells of cars, and I carry backpacks with bladder packs full of tequila to family functions, because I've got to get where I need to get to do anything in life, whether it's celebrating something amazing or whether it's celebrating something tragic. It doesn't matter. I have to be where I need to be to get anywhere and do anything. And so I have to pre-party, because I don't know when I'm going to be able to have the next drink, and I always overshoot the mark in the pre-partying, and I show up to the family events, and there was another thing I learned in the events process was that when my niece was born, I showed up, and we're going to the hospital to celebrate her birth, but again, I have to get where I need to get to celebrate or do anything. And so I've had a bottle and a half of tequila, and they think that I've been sober or dry for how many ever years, and I learned in the amends process that they took the baby away from me because they were afraid that I was going to drop my own niece, and that's how I roll. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where I'm going. It doesn't matter who I'm going to affect. It doesn't matter who I'm going to hurt. I need to get where I need to get to be able to function in life, to be able to interact with you. I need to be able to get to where I need to get, and that's the way I roll. And so I did it for a long time. I drank in a lot at work again. I would in bars that are no labels on the door. You have to know somebody who's third door down on the right, and you knock 3 times. And then my sponsor's mom said, when you open the door, it smells like urine-soaked walls and smoke. That's my jam. I'm like, that's where I feel at home. And that's where so I'm drinking at those places. I drink in my kitchen as I'm making dinner, like anywhere that I can get away from the normal, like I can hide it as much as possible. Because even at home, right, my now ex-wife she knew I was drinking, but I could never let her know how much I was drinking. Like that was never allowed. So I would have one bottle that I know that I could measure that was like down a little bit each day, and then I'd have the real bottle that I was drinking. So I'd pour one drink out of that, and you guys know how it is. Anyways, so that went on for a long time, and it just got really, really dark. It was some of the darkest and most difficult years of my life. I also had this small little Suboxone problem that I had, and it was a little rough to deal with that too. The Suboxone is continually making me go up and down as I'm drinking and drinking, and drinking is what brought me to my knees, but opiates are definitely a part of my story. But so I at some point, like I know that there gets to a point where my bottom was never like I never lost everything, right? There was never like the disappearance of everything. I never had this tragic bottom. My bottom was just simply out walking my dog one day, and I was like, I swore last night that I wasn't going to do this again. Like in Bill's story where it says, I made a solemn oath and this time I meant it. And then the very next line says, and then I was drunk. And that was my day to day, like that every single day. But if you woke up feeling the way that I woke up feeling in the morning, I knew I didn't know what I was going to be found out for that day. It may have been the security guard at Target for stealing the bottle of tequila the day before. It may have been my work for stealing the time clock machine that worked off Wi-Fi and keeping it in my car so I could just get close enough to Wi-Fi to clock in and then go back and pass out in my car. I don't know what it was that day that I was going to get caught for, but I was going to get found out, right? Somehow I was going to get found out. And so I get to lunch and I've made this solemn oath, and the anxiety and the fear of life has taken over, and I have no choice but to drink. There's absolutely no matter how strong of that solemn oath was in that morning, by the time I get to lunch, I have to drink. For me, if you felt the way I felt at lunch, you would drink too. And I go to Target and I steal another bottle of tequila, and it's off and running. And I come back to work and I've drank the bottle of tequila on lunch, and now my customer service scores are through the roof. Like, people love me at work now, and I'm comfortable in my skin, and I'm able to interact with you, and I'm able to interact with the real world. And my sponsor often says, like, I know exactly what one shot of tequila will do for me today. I know exactly what one shot of tequila will do to this body. All this, all this stress and discomfort and all this anxiety goes away in an instant. It's important for me to remember that because I know, anyways, it's important for me to remember what one shot of tequila would do to this body, and how important it is to maintain what we do around here in the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my dad called me and said, hey, we're concerned about you. I'd like to talk to you. And I was like, I don't know, I don't want to talk to you, Dad. And he's like, no, I need to talk to you. And I was like, so I'm like, okay, I'll get to where I need to get, and we'll have this conversation. Like, give me an hour. And so I let him go. I take the shot of tequila, and the bottle of tequila. I get stoned, and I call him back, and I'm like, what's up, Dad? And he's like, you know what? You say you've been dry or sober for so many years. We're worried about you. And I just wanted to check in. He said, I want you to know that if you ever think you need help, or if anyone ever asks if you need help, I hope you have the courage to say you need help. And I was like, yeah, Dad, whatever, and just completely blew him off. And it was just a few months later that I was in work, and they say that a customer said I smelled like alcohol, and I was like, I don't know how that's possible. And they said, we don't want to fire you, but if you need an Uber ride home. And I was like, I'm fine. And I turn around, and she says exactly what my dad said. Justin, do you need help? And I turn around, tears in my face, and I said, I need help. And I would go away to treatment, and I have no opinion on treatment. But like I said earlier, I had that small little Suboxone issue that I had to detox from, and so I go into treatment, and I start detoxing from the alcohol first, and Day 8 of my sobriety, I'm laid up in bed, and my foot is up, like, because I've got gout, because I don't know what's happening in my body, and all these things. I'm laying there, and the doctor from the treatment center walks in, and I said, what's up, doctor? We go out to visit the doctor. I have no idea why the doctor's there, and he says, I have to tell you that your dad just passed away. And so I'm 8 days sober. I've just learned that my dad has passed away, and what I said in that moment was I need to stay. And I have no idea how those words came out of my mouth. I literally have, he would tell me, I don't even remember saying it. He would tell me that in the chipping out ceremony that I said I needed to stay. And he said, I thought you were going to say anything else. I thought you were going to say I need to go, I need to drink, I need a drug. And apparently in that moment I said I need to stay. And that was the first time really that I ended up sitting in the feelings and just letting it wash over me, because I'll take any way out, right? I'll take the easy way out anytime. And I sat there and I walked through that. And at day 30, I may have been day 29, but day 29 or 30, I left the treatment center, and I drove straight to Laguna Canyon and the Canyon Club in Laguna Beach, and I went to the 5 o'clock meeting, the happy hour meeting, and I sat in the corner. I raised my hand and I said, my name's Justin, I'm an alcoholic, and I have to go to my dad's funeral tomorrow. And an old timer sitting across the room, dead across from me, looked at me, he mouthed where he said, you're going to be okay, kid. And that's what I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'll get a little bit more into my story in sobriety. I have a wild journey in sobriety here, but what I found in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous is that if I just stick around here somehow, some way, and listen to you guys, I'm going to be all right. And I went to my dad's funeral. My dad's partner grabbed me, and I distinctly remember weeping on that man's shoulder. And it was like this, oh my gosh, there's blood in these veins. I'm alive. I can't believe I have emotions and feelings. I haven't felt feelings, and I got here when I was 38 years old. I haven't felt feelings in over 20 years. And he just held me, and I cried, and I went on into sobriety. I found a sponsor, I found a home group, and I did my first set of steps in that first year, and it was okay. I had no capacity, to be honest. I didn't, but it was enough to get me through to the sponsor that I have now, to do the steps that I've done now, as outlined in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, line by line, word for word, in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and so I got through it, and we did that first set of steps, and in the at a year and a half sober, I had a son who was born without functioning kidneys, and that little boy, we were told that that we needed to take him home and let him pass away, that he wasn't viable with life outside the womb, and I don't know a lot about anything really in life, and I still don't. The longer I stay sober, the less I know really, but at that, I know that I don't know how to be a dad. My friend Danny Marsh says, not only am I ill-equipped, I'm unequipped to be a dad, a productive member of society, anything, right? I am absolutely unequipped to do any of this stuff, and I don't know how to do any of it, let alone be a dad to a child who may need special needs and all these things, right? And when they told us that I didn't share this from the podium, and I don't say it to non-alcoholics because they would be mortified, but to me, this alcoholic mind goes, you know what, that's probably the best option right at this point, right? I've got things to do in life, like sleep till noon and watch some cartoons and call in sick to work. I don't know how to be a dad, and it's probably best that he passes away. And so that was the option that we were presented with, and I don't know, I'm just terrified, and we just decided to deliver him. There was no amniotic fluid in the womb, and so without amniotic fluid, there's no way to really get a good picture of what's going on inside of there. And so we decided to deliver my son, and so that we could get a better idea of what was going on. He went into the NICU at first, and again, it's okay, we now can see there are no kidneys. He's not viable with life outside the womb, and he's on whatever. And my sponsor, It was my mom first. My mom comes in, and my mom's like, my mom is, she happened to be the high-risk coordinator of labor and delivery at St. Joseph's Hospital across the street, and my son is now in shock. He was born in St. Joseph. But she comes in, and she's like a tornado, and she's been doing high-risk deliveries for 40 years, and she comes in, and she's like, we're saving this baby's life, and she's like, I want a second opinion, and she's just like, directing the show, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Okay, Mom. And she's like, we're doing this, and she brings in a team of experts, and she brings in a team of her own doctors and her own nurses, and she coordinates the birth and the delivery and all of this stuff for my son. And we get out, and they're like, okay, if you really want to do this, he's going to need dialysis starting like now. And it takes 2 weeks for the dialysis catheter to heal in order to not leak. Like, it's like the chances are almost impossible. And we're like, my mom's like, I don't care, we're doing it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever she says. And so he went into surgery at 3 days old, and a dialysis catheter was placed, and we started dialysis. I think it was 2 days later. It didn't have time to heal. We thought it was going to leak. And because we're watching the blood numbers as they go, and the blood numbers are getting worse, and they're like, we can't wait any longer, we've got to start dialysis. And so we start dialysis on this boy, and he would be on dialysis for 3.5 years of his life. And during that time, at 6 months old, he went septic, and we almost lost him. He almost passed away. I got a call at 3 a.m. that said, you need to come make a code decision on your son. And I don't like, I got up and I went to the hospital, right? Like, my first thought was not to take a drink, which is amazing. I don't know how that happens to a guy like me. I literally drink for everything, but I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I throw pants on, I show up at the hospital. I didn't realize that I was not supposed to go see my son at that point. And so I rush, I know what room he's in, I go run in, and I walk in, and it was just a scene that, it's not anything that I would wish upon anyone. And I go out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, what's happening? And I go for a walk, and at this point, I can literally taste the alcohol. At this point, I am close. Like, I'm looking in bars, like walking down Main Street in Orange, California, and I'm like, well, let's just see who's bartending. And we're just curious as to who's bartending. And I'm walking down, and my son's septic, and I'm like losing my mind, and I don't know what to do. And I don't even know that I had the thought to process that I was close enough, like, to a drink. I was just in survival mode. But I'm looking in bars to see who's bartending, and I hear this voice, and it was as distinct as day. It said, that secret you're holding in your pocket, it's time to tell somebody. And I was like, I'm not telling anybody that. Well, let's come up with a different option. And I certainly wasn't going to tell my sponsor, because that was not happening. Because if this person knew this about me, they would not talk to me. And the sponsor, the only person in my life who I trust. And so I made friends with the man who is now my sponsor, and I sat him down. His mom is on her deathbed. She's literally recovering from cancer. He leaves her bedside to come sit with me, sits across from me, and in that moment I said, Pat, I've got to tell you this big secret. And he was like, and so I unloaded on him, and he looks at me and says, I love you, Justin. And for the first time in my life, I believed that if somebody knew everything about me, then maybe there was a possibility that person could love me. And if that person could love me, maybe I could love myself. And then if I could love myself, maybe there was a possibility that there was this God thing that could love me too. And so I asked him to be my sponsor. I started redoing the steps with that man, and he's still my sponsor today. And my son came out of that, and we did dialysis for 3.5 years, and every day of his life, it was 10 hours a night, all night. And I had this man who is now my sponsor, Pato. There was a requirement that if he was going to sponsor me, that I had to leave my son's bed no matter what. No matter what the condition was at the hospital, I had to leave to go to a Rooms Alcoholics Anonymous 3 nights a week. One of them had to be a home group. I picked Wednesday night, the Laguna Beach speaker meeting down at the Women's Club in Laguna Beach, and 2 other meetings. He was like, there are very few instances where you can not do that, but you have to leave his bed 3 nights a week to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, no matter what. That's our agreement. And I would show up to that home group and I'd be standing in the corner. It's a room similar to this. I'd be standing in the corner and I'm kicking and screaming and crying. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. You guys don't know what it's like to have a son in the NICU. I am chronically unique. I'm different. You guys will never understand me. I'm on and on and on. And my sponsor would come up and put his arms around me and say, keep coming back, kid. And then you tell me crap like your worst days, best day sober is better than worst day. I don't know what that saying is, but I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I don't want to be here, and I don't want to hear your sayings, and so, you guys would come in, hug me, and tell me to keep coming back, and I'd keep coming back. Well, week after week, three meetings a week, and I had my feet firmly planted in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I used to sit up in the front in the sound, and I'd help the person who did sound, and we'd set up every week, and we'd set up the sound equipment and the lights and all that. And she looked over at me at some point, and she said, "Justin, when your son gets a kidney transplant, this room's going to levitate." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cute, that's funny, but she'd tell me every week, when your son gets that kidney transplant, this room's going to levitate." And I was like, okay. I don't really know what that means, but okay, and just keep showing up to the meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and just keep showing up, and despite what this head said, every week, I just show up to you guys. You guys will put your arms around me no matter what I was feeling, and when in October of 2020, it'll be 4 years coming up here. We were dead in the middle of COVID. Everything shut down, including the hospitals. And we got a call. And we had like this perfect, we had like the donor lined up. She was like the perfect, ideal donor for us. And she was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and she was in Orange County AA, and she was a perfect match, and she was going to be this. And we were like, this is God's plan. Like, this is it. I figured it out. No God's plan here. Thanks God we got this. And then we got a call on October 19th of 2020, and they said, we have a kidney for your son. You've got 2 hours to get to UCLA. And we were like, no, wait a minute. We have our donor. And they're like, she's waiting on the board of Medi-Cal. She's not approved yet. We have a kidney here. It appears to be a perfect match. If you can get here in 2 hours, this kidney is for your son. And so rush home and throw together clothes, and we drive to UCLA. And then we arrive just at time. We arrive at like 11 p.m. and at 3 a.m. It was 3:33 because I have a picture. I screenshot it because 3:33 is an angel number. If you Google it or believe in all that or whatever. But it was 3:33 in the morning that night that we opened the doors and rolled him back and left him to go for his kidney transplant, and he got his kidney transplant. And if you've ever been with somebody who's had an organ donor transplant, it's a tough surgery. It's a tough surgery to recover from. And I'm watching this 3-year-old boy recover from a kidney transplant and sit by his side, and it's rough. But I will tell you guys that although that room didn't levitate because we were on COVID, my feet never hit the ground. The rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and the people of Alcoholics Anonymous literally carried me through that transplant. I had people of Alcoholics Anonymous fundraising money so that I could be in a hotel next to him. My sponsor drove up once a week and had dinner with me. We had meetings on Zoom, obviously, so I could see you guys, I could interact with you guys. You guys checked in, and the incredible thing to me, and I don't know why this was so incredible at the time, but it was just so strange to me at the time. Like, I was like, the people with like 5, 6, 7 years, like my class of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, like I thought they'd be around, but it was everyone from the newcomers to the people with 40 plus years of sobriety that showed up for me. And I was getting phone calls, and I was getting text messages, and I was having people check in on me, and all I did was show up to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, I've done some steps, I've held commitments, I've done all those things in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? But I showed up when I didn't want to show up. I sat in those seats, and even when I didn't want to be there, and I was reliable to the newcomer, that if they ever needed somebody, I was in that seat every week, right, in my home group meeting, right next to the stage, and that was about all I could give to Alcoholics Anonymous at the time, was to make sure that I was in that seat every week, because I didn't have much else to give. I was running on fumes or anxiety or whatever it was. I didn't have much else to give, but I could give the fact that I was in that same seat every week at Alcoholics Anonymous, and you guys literally carried me on your shoulders, and it's been like that. It's been a wild journey in sobriety since then. So obviously he just turned 6. Yes, he's Mike Mime. Thank you. He's my boy, and the thing that's crazy is there's a couple stories, and perfect. Thank you. I was not going to get close to this boy. I was going to keep this boy at arm's length my whole life. Like I didn't say my whole life, but at the time, right? I'm keeping this boy at arm's length. I don't know. Like, I have this belief, and I'm still working through it. Coming up on 8 years sober with now I've sought some outside help for this issue, but I have this belief that anything good in my life is going to be taken away. And I don't know where it comes from. My therapist and I are kind of unpacking this idea that I used to sit outside mom and dad's bedroom at night and hear them fight. And maybe that's where it comes from. So we look good on the outside, but the house is falling apart on the inside. And so maybe that's where that comes from. Like, I know the family's going to fall apart. I know what's happening inside. Although it looks great on the outside, I don't know where it comes from. It doesn't matter. I can unpack that with somebody who's trained to be able to help me unpack that. But I have this fear that anything's going to be taken, anything in my life good for me, good that I love, that I enjoy, anything good is going to be taken away from me. And I've got proof that it happens, right? Like, before this boy, his middle name is after a late-term pregnancy loss that we had before him. So like, I've got proof, like, things happen. I packed up the nursery, like, I know, like, that things can be taken away from me in an instant in this life. And I live sometimes in that fear, right, of I just know. And so I'm keeping this boy at arm's length. I'm not going to get close to him. I know he's probably not going to make it. We've been told time and time again that the dialysis has to be inches and seconds, right? We hear that in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. We're inches and seconds, right? I was told over and over again, if it's not exactly this day at this time and these blood numbers don't come to exactly this level, it's not going to make it. Or then at whatever 3 weeks old, his first dialysis catheter clogs on his liver and he can no longer do dialysis. And we happen to have a doctor who comes in and he's like, I've never put a dialysis catheter in somebody this small, but I was at a convention last year and they gave away the sample of this dialysis catheter that's half the size of a normal one. He's like, we could try it. Maybe it won't get clogged on the liver this time. And that's the dialysis catheter he had until his transplant. Like, I just have these there's like inches and seconds that I've experienced all through this thing, right? But it's like, I know, I'm convinced that God's going to take this boy away from me, so I'm not going to get close to him. And even into after his transplant, and at some point, he was about 4 years old, they canceled our nursing care. Nursing care is out. We've had a nurse his whole life on duty at our house, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., take care of him. And he got healthy enough for the insurance to say he doesn't need nursing care anymore. And I'm like, no, I've got, like, this can't be God's plan. I'm researching. I'm changing insurance companies, like, claiming that there's a life event with this insurance company. I'm like insane. When I think that the S has hit the fan, I'm nuts. And I'm like, no, I'm planning it out, and I'm calling these case court. I'm on the phone 24/7. I'm like, no, he has to have nursing care. And every road is a dead end. No nursing care, no nursing care, no nursing care. And I'm like, and then I was on a indoor cycling class, and the muscles in my legs tore out, and I had rhabdo. And I'm now in intensive care myself, and they're like worrying about my organs failing and anyways, I end up going out on leave of work for myself for 3 months while my muscles heal. And so I've got me and this boy at home, and I had no choice but to connect with this boy. The boy that I was like, I'm not connecting with you. There's no way. It's just him and I at home by ourselves for 3 months. And I'm his primary caregiver, and and I'm out on rhabdo, and God's like, here's your opportunity. Let's do this. And there was literally I fought it. I'm like, no, 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 no. And I would tell you that the connection that him and I made was incredible. I mean, he's my best friend to this day. He is, he's so much like me. He drives me absolutely insane. But he's as stubborn as I am. He's so smart. He's talked to doctors his whole life. He's incredibly intelligent. He's has plans for everything. I don't know where he gets that from. I know we figured this out, Dad. And but God found a way to bring us together. And I'll end with two stories. The first one is that, I can intellectualize my way out of God. Do I have a few minutes left? I can intellectualize my way out of God in a heartbeat, right? Driving from Redlands to here, I probably intellectualized my way out of God 20 times driving next to people on the freeway. But I have this way, and and I have the proof. This is I've got proof that God doesn't exist, right? Or that it's not going to happen this time, right? And then, and going into preschool after the nursing care, after I go back to school, we've got to find a solution. We don't have any solution. Preschool seems to be the only option, but there's proof. No preschool will take a kid who's not potty trained. And he's not potty trained because of the amount of water he has to take through his G-tube to keep that kidney alive. We give him liters of water a day to keep the kidney alive. He has an adult-sized kidney in his body. And so he is pumped full of water to keep that kidney alive. And so at this point, he's not potty trained and everything. I've called. I know this doesn't work, right? I've called all the schools. Nobody's going to take him in preschool because he's not potty trained. And the proof is, I know. There's no way God can show up here. I know. I've seen it all. I've tried every avenue I can go down, right? I've tried to fix it myself, and at some point the surrender happens, right? Whether it's willing or not, or whether it's just we run out of options, right? And at some point I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've tried every avenue to have nursing care back. I've tried every avenue to put him in school, and there is no solution. And then I get a call from the district nurse at Upland Unified School District who says, I've heard your son's story, and we're going to make sure that he's okay in our district. I'll have a nurse on staff at your school all day so that she can G-tube feed him his feeding at lunch, and so that she can do the diapering and the toiletering at school, right? And that's the experience that I've had in Alcoholics Anonymous, and is that I can fight this thing all I want. I can fight this whole God thing all I want. The gentleman he's not here tonight because he had a concert to go to. I love him. I told him, I said, go live your life, bro. But there's a gentleman who normally attends this meeting named Rob. And at 6 months post-transplant, I got a call from UCLA, and I said, we have a letter for you to receive. And I said, okay, yeah, we had considered it, and so they sent it, and I opened this letter, and this beautiful young woman, Jillian, in a picture of her in there, and I go on to read this letter, and it's a letter from Rob, who's expressing that he had just lost his daughter, and that he believes that his daughter's kidney is in my son. And I read on, and I get about halfway down, and there's the term higher power in there, and I was like, oh no, I know who uses the word higher power around here, and so I did what any logical person would do. I Facebook stalked this man and found out everything about him. His Facebook profile was public, so I knew everything about him. The one thing I saw right away is that we had a mutual friend named Darren Phillips, and I called Darren, and my son was like the Truman Show of Orange County AA, and so people would watch my son's whole life thing, and I called Darren, and I'm like, Darren, do you know a guy named Rob? And he's like, yeah, I was his grant sponsor at one point. And I was like, it doesn't matter. I was like, I think that his daughter's kidney is in my son. And Rob was like, or Darren was like, do you want me to call him? What do you want me to do? And I was like, no, I don't know. We're not allowed to call him. But it says we have to go through the donor organization. I don't know what to do. I was like, let me call my sponsor. And I hang up with Darren. He's like, okay, mate, let me know if you need anything. And I was like, okay. And I called my sponsor and I was like, hey, this is what happened. And he's like, okay, well, first thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to tell this man that you Facebook stalked him. And the second thing you're going to do is you're going to call him. And I was like, no. We don't call. It says right here you have to go through the donor organization. And my sponsor was like, is there a phone number on there? And I said, yeah, there's a phone number on there. And he said, then you're going to call him. I was like, Pat, you don't understand. We can't call. And he's like, he said, in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, we pick up the phone. I was like, seriously? It says not to call him. And he's like, call him. I called Rob, and he tells the story that I stalked him like 4 times before he answered. I don't believe that's true. Anyways, he can tell his version of the story when he shows up and is not at a Smashing Pumpkins concert. I called him and I said, Rob, my name's Justin, and there was just this like silence on the line, and I said, I received your letter, and I believe that your daughter's kidney is in my son. And he said, there's just this, like, and I said, I got to tell you that I Facebook stalked you. I got to be honest about that. And I said, and we have a mutual friend. And that man's name is Darren Phillips. And he, dead silence on the line. He came back and he said, are you a friend of Bill's? And I said, I am. And he goes on to tell me that he had just lost Jillian 6 months before that. And he had just lost Jillian at 6 months sober, and he had 11 months sober at the time that I called him or something like that. And he said, I've learned a couple things from Rob. One is that he had this idea, right? You heard when you have a family member pass away, like, I'm going to hear my daughter's heartbeat in a bear, right? I think that's like a thing that goes around Facebook or Instagram now, right? They give the donor gets, and he's like, I'll never have that. Jillian's heart went to somebody on the East Coast who never responded to any of my letters, and he's like, but that's the picture that I had, right? That's the story that I told myself was going to happen with this, and he's like, and I'll never have that, right? And he said, but I get to see my daughter's spirit alive in your son by having her kidney inside of him. And he's like, it's not the story that I thought I wanted. It's not the story that I had envisioned, but it was a perfect story put together by God to allow me to experience. And they say that the kidney donors, specifically kidneys, have like the similar taste buds and the similar energy. They happen to get that from their donor. And so Rob's a kid, and so is my son, and he wears Vans, and so my son calls him Van Spa, and we see him a couple times a year, and he takes my son shopping, and Rob has said that the only thing he wanted was a grandson or a grandchild, and he'll never have that opportunity with Jillian no longer being with us, but he gets to be alive and present in my son's life, and my son knows who he is, and they play together, and they go shopping together, and they do all kinds of fun things together, and I come up here sometimes, and he comes down there sometimes, and that's the power, right? Like I was telling Laura after I spoke on Friday night, like I get up here sometimes to remind myself, I mean, I love telling you guys, but I love sharing my story. I'm just a storyteller, but I need to be reminded of the power of God, because I can intellectualize my way out of this in a heartbeat. But when I get up here and I tell the story, it's undeniable. There's no way that I can walk away from this podium and still have the impression in my mind that God doesn't exist, because I can see it. It's there in the writing. Like everything that I tell in my story shows that the existence of God. And so no matter how much I can believe that God doesn't exist, by getting up here and sharing with you guys, I'm a little bit closer to that relationship with God and that higher power, and I appreciate you letting me be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Let's thank our speaker again.